Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia. Let's talk books. Today I am here with a review of Island Queen by Dr. Vanessa Riley. She her degrees engineering, and I want to make sure that I call her by the appropriate title. But this is a book that I read way back earlier in the year, and I am filming this review close after reading the book because I don't want to forget all the wonderful things that I loved about this book. So the book is releasing July 6th. So wherever we're at when this video goes up, that is the date that the book is going to be released. And this is a wonderful, wonderful work of historical fiction. It tells the real life story of Dorothy Kirwan Thomas. So she was a real individual who was born into slavery in the Caribbean and then bought her freedom and the freedom of her entire family. Even as she would find family members, then she would buy their freedom. That meant that she had to work against incredible odds to really make a fortune. She was one of the wealthiest free women in the Caribbean and was sometimes referred to as the Queen of Demerara, which is fantastic. It is a person we don't hear about a lot in history. I, as a historian, did not know anything about Dorothy Kirwan Thomas until I picked up Vanessa Riley's book, and so I am incredibly grateful for that. One of the themes in this book is slavery, the harshness of it that is depicted at several points. So yeah, some of it is difficult to read. The way in which women in particular were vulnerable to the sexual desires of white men. And other men on a plantation are made very real as we follow Dorothy's life story. At the same time, this is not a spoiler in that this is a real life figure, and so this in a key part of the story. But eventually, we do see, Dorothy Kirwan Thomas becomes a slave owner, and I really enjoyed the way that Riley explored that aspect because it would seem to be a contradiction for a former slave to then, and someone who understands the evil of slavery to then own people herself. And a lot of it is just, it's not unheard of in Caribbean history. This is a lot of formerly enslaved people who end up making their fortunes, owning plantations, end up owning slaves. And it's part of it is just how embedded slavery was to the economy of the world. You could not make certain kind of money without this, and I think that Riley explores a lot of that very beautifully in the book. Another key factor in here, another key theme, was that of gender. Right? It's not just the color of her skin that presents a barrier for Dorothy Kirwan as she, tries to live her life and explore all of the talents that she has, because she was an incredibly talented woman. But it's also that fact that she is a woman, and that there are tons of men that at different points try to take advantage of her, try to exploit her, especially because they recognize her talents. And so the men in this story really come off as really useless, because more than even the men that claim to love her, or that you might believe actually loved her, really don't know what to do with her, because she is more talented than they are, because they can see that she will work her butt off and do more things with her life than they are capable of even giving her. And I really, really enjoyed that aspect of the story. The men don't come off either as just like caricatures. It's just the situation. She's incredibly talented, a kind of one of a kind person, and so the men just don't know what to do with her and really are barriers to her success. And yet she perseveres and she manages to succeed. She also makes sure that the generations of her family that are born afterwards have every advantage she can possibly give them. We also see her interacting with the colonial world. She traveled to London, I think in the 1820s, I believe, and Riley portrays that in the book. So really this is a kind of sweeping narrative that takes us through this amazing life and generations of her family. It's so beautifully written. If you like character development, if you like history, learning history in your books, I think you really need to check out Island Queen. And it's also like just complexity, right? I love that Riley doesn't like sanitize the story for us, that it's presented in all its complexity. She does have to do, I mean, it's historical fiction, so she has to add a lot of fiction in here to fill out what we don't know about Dorothy, because the reality is that the historical record doesn't tell us everything we'd want to know about Dorothy Kirwan Thomas, and so some fiction needs to be brought in, but it's brought in so well done. And I have always been impressed with Riley's research. Honestly, the kind of research she does for her historical romances and now for her historical fiction books, like, are the equivalent of the kind of research that graduate students do as we get our PhDs in history. So I'm like, give her an honorary degree. She has done so much incredible work. I actually loved Island Queen so much more than I've loved her historical romances. I think like she excels at this kind of fiction, at this kind of historical fiction, and I'm so glad to hear that she's actually contracted to write a second historical fiction book, because I think this is where her talents can shine more fully. And I say that as someone who believes that, like, you know, romance writing is really difficult, and I admire everyone who does it, and we need more diversity within romance. But I'm like, oh my goodness, her writing is just, I think, so excellently suited for historical fiction that I just want her to keep writing in that genre, so I get to read more of that kind of writing. I just honestly, I cannot recommend this book enough. I feel like I should start giving out seals like this is historian approved, and I just think that all kinds of readers will really enjoy this book. Like I said, if you are a plot-driven reader, I think there's enough plot in here to keep this book will work for you. If you're a character-driven book, there's enough character development here. If you prefer setting, the settings that Riley takes us through it, you know, through her life are just vast, beautiful, dark and evil, and like everything. You just get everything in this book, and I just can't wait for more people to read it so that we can all rave about this book together. So if you have read it, please let me know down below. If you're planning on picking it up, also let me know and tell me what excites you the most about this book. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!